Hey, this is Mike WX0MIK here. Let's talk about repeaters and how to access them. So you learned through your testing that repeaters have an offset. One is receive frequency, one is a transmit frequency, and they're typically spaced fairly close to each other. You have VHF, which is typically 1.6 megahertz split, and then you have UHF, which is typically 5 megahertz split. And that split up both allows the repeater to transmit and receive simultaneously at the same time, and also to just kind of keep things a little simpler in some ways. There is such thing as simplex repeaters, but what happens there is you transmit, it records that audio, and then it replays that audio back to over there after your transmission is done. While that works, and while there is a place for it, in emergency operations there is not, because no one has time to sit there and wait for something to play back. You're just doubling how much time it takes to get a response back. So, that is the raw basics how repeaters work. One other thing to note is that there are PL tones or DCS tones, digital tones, that are embedded in the transmitted audio that keeps the repeater open. A lot of these more digital-based repeaters these days have a tone on both receive and transmit because digital does not have those tones. So fusion, things like that, they're coming over the carrier wave. So if you put the analog as having a tone associated with it, if someone's sitting there doing fusion on the repeater, you don't hear the sounds. Don't try and replicate that. It is a very digital sound that if you were to listen to the repeater. Our particular repeaters, at least here in Mankato, have it even on the analog repeaters. That way it's consistent across the board. Because consistency is also a key that does not exist in most of ham radio. So once you have figured out how to program your radio, and I'll do one here soon on a couple different radio types, but once you have programmed your radio, now you're ready to make your first contact. How do I make my first contact? That gets a little tricky, but here's what I tell most people. Think drive times. Number one, think drive times. Morning, over noon, and evening. Those are the best chances to get at least the working people in the area, because they're probably listening in their car, driving to work, take the kids to school, whatever. That is always a good place to go look. The other thing to do is evenings. Obviously, in the evening, people are at home. Always give it a few minutes to wait for a response back, because maybe someone's in the living room, they heard something on the radio, they gotta get out of their chair, and then they have to crawl all the way to the office or their shack, and then they can talk to you. Now, I am not an advocate for constantly keying repeater, but that is one way to test just to make sure your programming is even accurate. You can click and key the repeater, and most repeaters I have ever done this to, they come back with a carrier wave. It just sounds like a little static over your programming, and then you know that at least you can key the repeater. So now you got to make your contact. Call out there. This is your call sign. If you're brand new, say, I'm a brand new ham and I'm trying to make my first contact. That at least tell people, like, hey, this guy's new, I should really try and make an effort of reaching out to him. And there's a lot of people who will. Otherwise, under normal circumstances, if I'm in the car, I will say just WX0MIK mobile. Some people say listening. Some people, like if you're in an area like mine that has multiple repeaters, then we're always scanning. We'll say, hey, this WX0MIK on the 2.4 repeater. 2.4 meaning is 147.240 2.4 repeater. Also, there is a digital analog network, I guess is a better way to put it. We have a network of repeaters throughout the region. So that on that particular repeater, what we might say, this is WX0MIK on the 3.3 repeater on the P25 analog network in Mankato. Because there are people in the metro, there are people kind of all over the southern Minnesota and northern Iowa that could potentially be on this repeater. So you can identify which repeater you are on. Those are protocols you learn as you go. But the biggest thing is just get out there, try it a few times. Don't get discouraged. No one comes back to you the first time. But keep trying. Now, if you feel you are outright being ignored, like someone else calls shortly after you and boom, someone responds almost instantly, or there's many other ways to kind of feel like I'm just being ignored. Maybe no one's paying attention to you, or they don't know who you are, they don't want to talk to you. You got to remember, this is an introvert's hobby. Most of us are introverts, but there's another surefire way. Bad protocol, but good surefire way to get a response. And I've heard this happen a few times. This is why I joke about doing this, and legitimately I would do it if I know I'm actively being ignored. CQ, this is WX0MIK on the 2.4 repeater. Is anyone out there listening? You don't call CQ a repeater because it's assumed someone is always listening. Some old guy will probably come, you don't call CQ on the repeater. But I got your attention, did I not? You were ignoring me before this. Don't say it that way, but you can still joke, well, you answered me, so I guess it worked. And then proceed to introduce yourself and try and continue on the conversation from there. As I have said, this is introvert's hobby. You also got to battle the introverts. That's another topic for another day. But get out there, try a few different repeaters, see which ones are productive or not. Talk to the local ham club. They will point you in the place where repeaters are most often monitored. In this particular vehicle, I only have a VHF radio, so I'm only ever monitoring VHF traffic. If I had my radio with me, which I've been forgetting again lately, I could potentially be scanning and listening at the UHF as well. But for right now, that's all I have. That's all I'm monitoring. Those are probably the most popular repeaters anyway. So get to know your repeaters, get them programmed, start testing them, and get out there and get on the air. That's the only way you're going to have success. And join nets. If you know when the net is, if the website mentions when the net is, get on the net. Good with time to introduce yourself. There's a captive audience there. I'm going to say don't worry about doubling, because someone will say, hey, someone got doubled. Can we try those two again? They should be doing that anyway. Don't proactively do it all the time, but if you're checking into a net, just put your call out. You listen, you hit the key, and if someone happened to key at the exact same time you did, oh well. They'll just come circle back with you, and they'll tell you that again. I don't know if I can simulate a double, but it's very clearly something happened, because you'll get a bunch of noise and you won't hear anything, and that is what doubling sounds like. You can't copy either person, but maybe you'll cut someone off, or someone gets cut off, or something like that in between. Yeah, those are the big things. So 7.3.